Welcome back. It's Agusha again, and we're gonna go start making that hookshot mechanic, and we'll do all this code in the player controller. And to start off, we're gonna require all the components that we used for the past ones, so the checkpoint tracker and the coin tracker and the health tracker. Also, make sure there's a line renderer included into it, and that's all of the required components we need. So now we're gonna add some variables for the hookshot. So we're gonna have a grapple speed, the grapple release distance, the grapple fire speed, the transform position of the grapple hand, and we're gonna also add a line renderer. We're gonna add the transform of the grapple hand parent, the grapple point, which is the reference point of where you're grappling to, the a float of the hookshot progress, and the grapple target. So we're gonna add the transform grapple hand parent. We're gonna add a vector 3 point, a grapple point, the hookshot progress, and the grapple target. So now we're gonna add another enum, and this is for the grapple state. And then in this enum, we're gonna have 4 states, which is not, aiming, firing, and traveling. And then we're gonna add a variable called grapple stage so that we remember which one we're on. So in the animation state, we have to add 2 more states to it, and those include grapple aim and then grapple pull. In Awake, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to add the line render component, and then also get the grapple hand parent, which will be grapple hand.parent. And then we're going to scroll the way to the bottom to the fire grapple. And then in here, we're going to set a bunch of values. So grapple stage is going to equal grapple stage.firing. We're gonna make the grapple hand dot game object. So we're gonna set the game object of the grapple hand to be active. We're gonna make the parent equal null, and then the line render is gonna be set enable, so it'll start drawing the line, and also the hookshot progress will start at 0. Next, we're gonna check grappling, and in here we're gonna check if the player's not moving, or if the player's not grounded, then we want to return, and so you can actually throw the grapple. And then if it's not, if those conditions are passing, then we want to see if they press the grapple button, which will be mouse down button 0. So the left click. And then we're going to do a ray cast. And to do that, so how a ray cast works is it shoots a line from one point to another. So we're going to take the point of the mouse position, so where you clicked, and then we're going to check if it collides with anything, with using physics.raycast, and then you pass in that ray, and then you have a out.hit. And then if you do hit it, then set the move direction.x to 0, set the rotation to face where the grapple is, so the hit.point.x minus the grapple hand.position.x. And then we're going to set the animation state to grapple aim, so that it starts looking towards it and has its hand up. And then we're going to set the grapple stage to be grapple stage.animating. So then we're going to make the grapple point equal to the hit point. And then if that point has the tag ground or enemy, then we want to make that grapple point, the z-axis of it, equal to the transform, so where the player is, z. And then we want to invoke fire grapple, so call the fire grapple method, but wait 0.36 seconds, and then we do that so that the animation will play properly. Next, we're going to write the grapple towards. So we're going to make the grapple target equal to the point that we passed through, and then make the grapple stage equal to to grapple stage.traveling, so that we know that it's in the transition of moving. Next, we're going to do the end grapple. In here, we're going to change the grapple stage to not, the grapple hand.position to the grapple hand parent's position. Then we're going to change the grapple hand.parent to become the grapple hand parent, so it goes back into that game objects reference. And we're going to turn off the line render. We're also going to turn off the grapple hand game object itself, so you can't see it anymore. So now we're going to set up the move grapple, and this will actually make the grapple hand move. So we're going to calculate the progress along the line and the new position. So the hookshot progress will be plus equals the time.delta time with the grapple fire speed. And then we're going to set the new position to be vector3.lerp so that it's nicely animates. So now we're going to get the new grapple position, which will be a lerped between the grapple hand parent position, the grapple point, and then mathf of clamp 01 for the hookshot progress. Next, we're going to do a raycast to see if it hit anything. And we're just going to pass in the grapple hand position and then the new grapple hand position. And then after we do the raycast, we'll just set the grapple hand position to become the new grapple hand position. And now we gotta check what it hit. So we'll take the hit object and switch between all the different tags that it could have hit. So the first case we need to check if it hit a grapple object tag, then we want to set the point to become wherever the grapple hand position is, and then set the z-axis of the point to be equal to the transform so it's on the same z scale, and then start the grapple towards code that we wrote, and then set the animation to grapple pull. We also want to set the grapple stage to become the traveling stage, and then return from the function. Now, if it wasn't a grapple, we're going to check the case of if it was an enemy. So we're going to get the enemy controller and then set it to death so that the enemy dies. And we're also going to end the grapple so that the grapple stops moving. And then return that function. The next case will be for collectibles, where we do nothing. And then we're also going to check the case for player, which will do nothing, just to make sure we get everything, and then the default will just end grapple in case something was hit without a tag. Now we're going to do one more failsafe, and that will be if the hookshot progress is greater than 1, we just want to end the grapple. Next, we're going to do move player to grapple, and in here we're going to check if the distance between the player position and the grapple hand is less than the release distance, or the distance between the grapple hand parent's position and the grapple target is less than the grapple release distance. If it is, then we want to set the animation state to falling, so you start moving down. And then we want to set the grapple stage to not, and we want to make the move direction be a vector 3.0, so remove all velocity, and also do the end grapple stuff. Then we want to apply some move direction, which will be the grapple target minus the position, the current position of the player, normalize so that we can get so we have the direction, and then we want to times that by the grapple speed. Next, we're going to apply the push force with the move direction, so it's going to be the grapple target minus the current position. So we're going to find that direction, and then we're going to multiply it by the grapple speed. So normalizing it will just make it a direction rather than the magnitude, and so it moves at the whatever speed was set b. So now if you realize we haven't actually implemented any of the grapple hooks, so in update, we're going to remove the calculate movement, and then instead, we're going to make a switch statement based on the grapple stage. So if the grapple stage is not, then we want to calculate movement. If you're not in grapple stage, allow the player to move and check for grappling. If the grapple stage is firing, then move the grapple. And then if the grapple stage is traveling, then move the player to the grapple. And that's it for the grapple stuff. So the last thing we have to do is update the line renderer so that it actually shows the lines drawing on the screen. And to do that, we just need to do line render.setPosition. And for the position 0, we set it to the grapple hand parent's position. And then we'll set the position 1 to be grapple hand dot position. And that way it draws the line across the screen. So this is all we need for the player controller implementing the hookshot mechanic. And we'll go in and implement all the code that we just did together.
Hey guys, this is Chris here. Thank you, Agusha, for teaching us how to create that hookshot mechanic through code. So now what we're going to do is set that up with our player controller and in our level. So as you can see, first of all, we have these large pillars. These pillars will be used to signify where our hookshot's going to be placed in the world. So it'll help us cross those big gaps, as you can see, using our main mechanic. So the points will be attached to those main pillars, but we'll be showing that very soon. First though, let's set up our character prefab. So as you can see with the player controller script, we have this grapple hand parameter, and right now there's no transformer in it, and as you can see, if we play in the console, it'll give us an error because it's expecting a transform there when we don't have one. So let's quickly set that up. If we go over to our project tab where we have our character set up, open up the player prefab, you can see here, let's try to find our where we set up our model, and we have this grapple hand anim asset. First and foremost, make sure the scale is set to 0.01, and now we can just import that right into our player prefab. And what we want to do is open up our rig, our character rig, and try to find the right arm. It should be under the spring underscore base. And if you keep going down, you'll eventually get to the chassis and the arms. And we want to put this in our right arm. As you can see in our model, we have a little bit of a unique right arm, and that'll be used as our grapple hand. So we could just zero out the transform on that. Make sure the scale is set to 1. And I believe the rotation is 0 on the Y, 0 on the Z, negative 90 on the X, although it might be a little different when you import it or with whatever model you're using. So, right, negative 90 on the X and maybe a 180, yeah, 180 on the Y. So let's just put that right under our arm hand base and then zero that out. Okay, yeah, so if you put it under the arm hand base, that is that should be properly set up, and then you can just move it out. So that's properly set to the transform of where our hand is. Let's just apply the proper materials here. So what's going to happen here is that when we use the grapple mechanic, we're going to have this hand defaulted off, and then when we use the mechanic, it'll turn on, it'll do the hook shot, and then when it comes back, it'll turn back off. So let's just turn that. We could just rename it quickly and set it to off as default. And then we can go ahead back into our player, into our scene, and hook up the grapple hand into the player controller script just by simply dragging it in. So now if we press play, you can see that the original error is gone, but we have a new error in which our script is expecting a line render. So if we go over to that script, you can see that it is in fact expecting a line render. So if we don't have one set up, it's going to throw us an error. So let's quickly add a line render component. And we'll just leave it default right now, but we'll show you what that looks like. You see that it should show up with that classic Unity pink because it's missing a material on it. But as you can see, when we press along the scene, it shoots out our hand. But before we set up the line render, let's set up some grapple points. So we can do that really easily, really quickly with a box right now, just to show you. So let's right click the hierarchy window, go to 3D object cube, and this cube already comes with a box collider on it. But we'll set that up on these pillars like I was explaining earlier, so that our character can just simply click on them and grapple. So what we want to do first is make sure that these items they have a tag on them. So if we go over to our tags, we can press add tag, and then we have to call it grappleable, spelled exactly that way, because in code it will be calling that. If it's misspelled, it will not work. So we just set that cube's tag to grappleable, And then if we play, if we simply click on the box, you can see that our grapple now attaches to that point and it will send us. If you click anywhere on the screen that is not tagged grappleable, it will not send you like a grapple. So we have a model set up for this specific instance. We don't want to just use a box. We have our own model set up. And so let's just quickly find, okay, here we have our platforms. It's just called platform grapple node. So we can delete our box, get that out of there. We don't need that anymore. So we have this grapple node model, and this will be used from now on in our game to showcase where you can grapple. So we'll just set it up and align with these pillars. Just move it into place. Make sure that we have our tag set to grappleable, and then all we need to have is a collider. So we're going to use a sphere collider. And we just want to make sure it's in line with our actual character. So we'll move it to about the middle of the peg. And we'll just make sure that's big enough so that it actually gets hit. Because if it's too small, it might be too hard to click on. Let's play and give this a shot. So if we just click on the rod, you can see that it works just like the cube. Works perfectly because it's tagged. If it was not tagged, this would not work at all. And if it was misspelled, it would not work either. But yeah, as you can see, all it needs is the tag and a collider, and it'll work as our grapple point. So if we open up our prefabs folder, let's now save this as a prefab so that we can use it everywhere in our level. So we'll just call it grapple node. We don't need the platform in there. And just simply drag it into the folder, click original prefab. And now we can put that asset anywhere and it'll keep the tag and its components on it. So we can just plop a bunch of these in our level and they're already ready. So as you can see, this one will work just like the original one. Click on it, works as well, and it actually has a collider on it. So I just landed on it. So you'd want to put them a little higher, like we did with the first one, so that you get a proper swing. Because if you just have them down there, then what might not work as intended. Let's just clean up these numbers really quickly. I think it should move back a little bit more because it should be in line with the character. So I'd say negative 1.8 is a good number if you're working along with us. And then if we apply that prefab, as you can see now, it will apply to all of the grapple nodes in our level because they are all prefabs. So the next step is to set up some of our players' animations for this grapple. So if we press play here, as you can see, the code is expecting a few parameters, animation parameters, and as you can see on the bottom left, we're getting some errors in our console because there's no parameters set up yet for our grapple aim or our grapple pull. And if we use the mechanics successfully here, we can see grapple pull also does not exist. So we're just going to set those up really quickly. If we head over to our project tab, let's look in our animations folder really quickly. And as you can see, we have this text file here that's been accompanied by our artists who made these animations, pretty much telling us which frames our grapple aim animation is being set up with and our grapple pull animation, so we know exactly, instead of having to scrub through all those frames, our artists have let us know where to cut it. So if we find our character here, as you can see, we've already cut those properly, grapple aim and grapple pull. And we don't want these to loop at all, so make sure that's not checked. Except for grapple pull, we do want this one to loop. As you can see here, just sort of like some leg movements. Now if we go up into our animator, we're going to set up these animations in our animator with proper transitions and proper parameter calling. So first we're going to set up two parameters, both of them being triggers. One of them is going to be called grapple aim, and the next is going to be called grapple pull. Make sure it's spelled properly because in code it is expecting those exact spellings. Then we'll just find our pull and aim animations, drag them into our animation window, and we're just going to make some transitions from the idle to the pull. No, sorry, we want to do the aim. We want to do the idle to the aim, and then the aim to the pull. And then also we want to make a transition from pull to fall, so it'll go straight into that sort of falling animation when they're airborne. So if we click on our transition between grapple, anim, and idle, we can add a condition with the plus sign called grapple anim, and then also we want to make sure that has exit time is turned off. And then in between our grapple anim and grapple pull, actually before we do that, let's make a transition from walk to grapple anim, because we want to be able to do it as we're walking. Set the condition to grapple anim and turn off has exit time. Now let's go back into our transition to the pull, and for this one we can set the condition to grapple pull to go from our anim to our pull, and then in between our pull and fall we can do the falling condition. Let's make sure that has exit time is turned off for both of these, and that should be good right now. So it'll start from anim to pull and then hopefully to fall. So let's test this out. And if we grapple here, we can see all of our animations are properly playing. We're getting no errors in our console, and everything is being properly called in code. Alright, now it's time to take a look at that line renderer. So if we press play, as you can see here, we have that pretty ugly bright pink that Unity applies to anything that is missing a material. So let's set up our line renderer properly with a material and some color gradients. So if we go down to our player prefab, head down to our line renderer, we see that it's missing a material on our character. So we've created a material just called P trail. It's just technically a line with a bit of fall off. Now if we click on the little color tab closer to the bottom, you can see that we have this gradient editor. So those little arrows that are at the bottom of the gradient editor, those allow for color information. So we can click on each of those little tabs and customize the color. If we make a tab at the top, that is actually transparent information, alpha information. So that allows you to go from completely transparent to completely opaque. So if we click on the bottom here, let's just set it to a nice little blue throughout the entire bar. You can set this up however you want it to, and we'll just set the alpha at the end to go a little bit translucent throughout the entire thing. So if we press play here, you can see that when we use our hookshot, we get this nice little line render. It has a bit of fall off. It's blue. It's a little translucent. But you can see that it's at the beginning, it is default set to active. So if we press play, if we set it inactive, it is not turned on. So that is exactly what we want. But when we use it, it still activates through code. You can see on the bottom right that it does actually get activated when you use it, and then it turns off, so that when you're in an idle or walk state, it's not on when you don't want it to. So if we go back to our line render, we have this width tab. This just basically says how thick the line is. So if you right click, you can add keys and you can customize this line however you want it. So right now we just have it set up to start at about almost 0.75 width and then slowly go up to 1 width the longer it gets, or the longer it's out. So as you can see, the closer to the hand it is, it's thinner, while the closer to the grapple point, it's thicker. Okay, so now we want to be able to complete this level. So let's set up some more grapple nodes so that we can properly complete this level to the end. We're just gonna make an empty group here, just so we have our hierarchy tab organized. We'll just call it grapple points, and we'll put the 2 that we've already created in there. Now we can very easily just press Control D, make duplications of it, and let's place the rest of these alongside our pillars. I'm going to put 2 here so that, because we have a little bit of a branching level here, you can go up or down. So we want to make sure that if you do go down, you can properly get out. So if we just play here really quickly to make sure that all of these work and are in the proper spots. So our original one we know works. And we can go up. And then also if we fall down here at the bottom, we know that we can get back out. Perfect. Now our level's a bit more filled out. So the next thing we want to set up is our enemies. We want to properly set them up so that we can attack them with our hookshot mechanic. So we have an enemy here, and it has a box collider on it, which will properly interact with our character's hookshot arm. So we want to add another tag here, and this one you want to call enemy, and to make sure it's spelled properly, just the same, because the code is expecting it. If it's spelled incorrectly, it would not work. So we'll just play it here really quickly and showcase what that looks like. So we head over to our enemy. We're just gonna wait for it to come back. And it's a little bit of a hard shot to hit. Let me just try to get a little closer. And there you can see that when we attack it, it plays an animation of it falling and also turns off all of its damage properties, so it does not hurt us at all. It is completely immobilized. And if we hit it, nothing happens. It only takes one hit. If we hit it again, sorry. So this model is a little small, and I just want to change the box collider here so that it's proper scale. I want to make sure that it'll get hit every time. I noticed that it was a little hard to hit last time, so we'll just really bump up that X value to make sure that we're getting no issues here. And we'll just set the scale to about 1.75. Looks a bit better. Just wanted to properly set it within this world. I think it's still a little big. Maybe we'll knock it down to 1.25. Yeah, that looks better. Oh, not that. Yeah, that looks better. So as you can see, the enemy controller is expecting a particle system here, so you can add any sort of particle system. That will play when the enemy actually gets immobilized, so you can do some sort of spark particles, but we'll show that in another episode. So as you can see in this episode, we've set up our hookshot pegs to properly work with our hookshot mechanic. We've set up a trail renderer. So let's quickly showcase what that can look like in the final game. Okay guys, we're going to do our final showcase for everything that we've implemented. We've added some new particle systems to the hookshot. As you can see, we've set up some pegs so that when you click on these specific points, it properly uses our hookshot mechanic. Whereas if you click it anywhere else, it would not work because we've properly tagged them. We've also set up our enemies here that properly tagged as well, so if you try to attack them, it will disable them. Oh, okay, we'll try to show it on the next ones. As you can see here, when we attack it, they get destroyed. We've added some particles to that too, and they don't hurt you. And we can properly complete our level. So this has been our video on the advanced hookshot mechanic. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Brain Academy. On the next episode, that's episode 6, we will be talking about level design and HUD implementation. The HUD is going to be where we're displaying to the player how much health the player has and how many coins they've picked up. Hope to see you there. Stay frosty.